what or who makes the perception? What makes the perception that scientists cannot be dharmic or religious, as he or she sees everything scientifically and dharma is not science? Okay, so let's be clear. There is a difference between science and philosophy, science and spirituality, science and religion. Now, religion and dharma are different. The Indian system, dharmic system, is different from the Abrahamic systems, which are religions. Dharmic system is different, and so on. But when it comes to science versus, let's say, philosophy, philosophy and spirituality can deal with non-physical objects. When we talk about the concept of the soul is not something you can measure. It's not something you can observe. Soul is non-observable. It's non-measurable. It doesn't have a weight. It doesn't have mass. It doesn't occupy volume, as far as we know. It's a non-physical object. So when we talk about non-physical objects, that is beyond the realm of science, right? When you are a scientist, you are absolutely disciplined that you only deal with physical objects, physical phenomena, and observable quantities. That is science. When we talk about philosophy and religion and dharma, when we talk about the soul and we talk about ethics and morality, these are not physical things. So you cannot bring science into that, or you cannot take that and try to apply science to that, and you cannot make science subject to whatever laws may or may not exist related to these non-physical objects. There is That's the difference. That's what differentiates science from philosophy and religion. Now, can a scientist be religious? Is it wrong for a scientist to be religious? Let me give you some examples. Have there been scientists who have been religious in history? Have you heard of Srinivas Ramanujan, one of the greatest mathematicians in known history? Mathematician. Well, he was deeply, deeply, profoundly religious. He said that every mathematical equation is something to do with God, and he used to see dreams of his goddess, his family goddess, and she used to give him equations, and he used to wake up and write those equations, and they would invariably be correct. So he was religious, deeply religious. That's one example. Uh, George Sudarshan, ECG Sudarshan, one of the greatest theoretical physicists of the 20th century. He should have won 3 Nobel Prizes. He was born into a Christian family in Kerala or South India somewhere, the southern India, but he was not a practicing Christian, he was a practicing Hindu. And maybe that contributed to him not winning a single Nobel Prize. He should have won 3 Nobel Prizes. That's how great and that's how brilliant George Sudarshan was. Do you want to see what it looks like? Let me put him on the screen. One of the greatest physicists that we can in our history. Let me put Google on the screen. So this is a scientist who was religious. Okay, one of the greats, one of the genuine greats. He was religious. He believed in God. Who else? Who else can we think of? Scientists who believed in God. Georges Lemaître. Who was Georges Lemaître? Let me tell you. Let's Wikipedia him. As always, Wikipedia is not a reliable source of information, but just for the sake of convenience, we'll put Wikipedia on the screen. So this guy, Georges Lemaître, was a theoretical physicist. He proposed the Big Bang theory. That's how significant he is. He proposed the Big Bang theory. And he also derived what is now called Hubble's law, and so on. And who was this guy? He was a Catholic priest, and he was a theoretical physicist. Okay, let's take a look at something about him, work, blah blah blah, etc. etc. What do we have? Uh, let's go to this. Let's go to this archive paper about him. Editorial note to the beginning of the world from the point of view of quantum theory. So this is about a paper that Lemaitre wrote. And what does he write here? Let's see. This is something he had crossed out. He says, I think that everyone who believes in a supreme being, supporting every being and every acting, believes also that God is essentially hidden and may be glad to see how present physics provides a wheel, hiding the creation. So this is a guy who's a Catholic priest. He believes in God, and he is the person who proposed the Big Bang theory, one of the greatest physicists, okay, theoretical physicists. And men, the predictions, his predictions were all borne out. They all came out to be true. Big Bang theory, cosmic microwave background radiation, and much more. And he believed in God. So this is a Catholic guy or Catholic priest. Similarly, why can't you be a dharmic person and still be a physicist or a scientist? Of course you can. George the Sudarshan, he was a dharmic guy, dharmic man, one of the great geniuses of the 20th century. So when you do physics, when you do science, you do it through the scientific method. You don't bring in religion in there, otherwise you're going to end up with nonsense. And the scientific method emerged out of India. Now, there are people who will say that you should, okay, I'll not go into that, unnecessary controversy, but that's a deal. So you can be a physicist while also being religious, because as a physicist, especially if you are at the cutting edge of physics, at the bleeding edge of physics, between the known and the unknown, the possible and the impossible, that's typically theoretical physics, then you know that more than 95% of the universe is unknown to us. So when there is such when there are such enormous unknowns, it makes sense to have a to to consider seriously the possibility that there could be a divinity out there. So I would say most physicists, the more brilliant they are, the more agnostic they are, and some of them actually are believers in God. So there is, so it's some physicists, some scientists will say that it is wrong for a scientist to believe in God. I think those people are idiots, to put it very crudely. But yeah,